In 1978, 15-year-old Mary Vincent would be hitchhiking when she would be picked up by a man by the name of Lawrence Singleton. What would follow is a nightmarish ordeal that you would hope and pray only exist in horror stories. But this was very much real life. Singleton would brutally attack Mary. He would sexually abuse her, before then cutting off her limbs and leaving her for dead. But miraculously, Mary was able to survive this ordeal and she was able to put Lawrence Singleton away behind bars. But not for very long. And just 2 decades later, Lawrence Singleton would target another young female. But this time, she wouldn't be so lucky. Roxanne Hayes would be brutally murdered at the hands of Lawrence Singleton, a man that should never have been released from prison. And those are the 2 victims that we know of. But God only knows how many more victims of Singletons exist. This is the harrowing survival story of Mary Vincent and the tragic, devastating murder of Roxanne Hayes. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you're new here. I hope you're all doing so well. Welcome back to another true crime and makeup episode. Oh yeah. Today we are covering a miraculous story in many ways. We are covering the case of Mary Vincent and Roxanne Hayes. And let me tell you, this whole case is a complete roller coaster. And this truly depicts the evil that we have lurking in the shadows. I'm not going to spoil too much of this case. I'm sure it'll be one that a lot of you already know, but I know a lot of you won't have heard of this one as well. So I'm really excited to share this one with you today. It just feels really important. If you are new here, hi, my name is Anna. I am a certified yapper and one day decided to come on the internet, yap about true crime and hope to find a community of people like myself, all interested in the same thing, and I have found 16,000 of you so far, which is so exciting. If you are new here, make sure you subscribe, get that notification bell on because I'm here for you twice a week, every single week on a Wednesday and Sunday. If you're a regular here, you already know the drill. Get down in the comments, leave your like, create that comment, we can just yap away about life, or we can talk about this horrific monster. You know me, I'm up for the serial killer slander. Say whatever you like about them, it is all welcome. Down below in the description you will find the details of all the products that I use on my face today whilst I get ready. You'll also find my social media handles, my Instagram and my TikTok. I have been posting some lifestyle content on my TikTok, so if you'd like to keep up with me over there, give me a follow, wouldn't hurt, and I'd be grateful. But without any further rambling and any further ado, let's get into the survival story of Mary Vincent and the tragic murder of Roxanne Hayes. Got a little coffee for the filming, and can we just appreciate how cute these cups are? My mum and dad had bought me them for moving into my house and they are my favourite coffee cups ever. Everything tastes better when it's in a nice cup, I swear. Anyway, so I'm getting ready to go out for brunch with my girls. I say brunch, but they booked it for 12:30 and to me that's just lunch. Like, breakfast has been had, you know. I can't wake up without feeling sick with hunger, so I need to eat in the morning. So I'm going for lunch. But Mary Vincent, she was born in 1963 and she lived with her parents in Las Vegas. Now, Mary's father, he was a mechanic and Mary's mother was a blackjack dealer. Now, she had actually met Mary's father whilst he had been serving in the military. If I'm honest, Mary's childhood and, you know, her early years, they weren't the happiest because Mary's mother and father, they had sort of grown to resent each other as time had went on. And they do get to a point where they just think, you know what, this is never going to be fixed. So the best thing we can do for our family, because they had 7 children, was to separate. And the thing is, whilst they know that this is the best option, whilst they know that this relationship is not working and it's causing more harm than good, they still don't want their children to be upset. But of course, any child in that situation, they are going to feel upset. They're going to wonder, you know, were they the cause? Were they something to do with it? Have they made their mum and dad unhappy? And that is never ever the case. So this breakup, it did take a toll on the children, but especially Mary. Mary really seemed to struggle with the divorce. So as Mary became a teenager, she was struggling more than ever. And I mean, becoming a teenager in itself is like, let's just say I would not pay money to go back and be a teenager. Let me say that much, and I'm sure my mum and dad would agree. But Mary was struggling as a teenager just with everything teenagery? Everything teenager-like in general. The hormones, the anger, the sadness, everything that comes with being a teenager. But this divorce, on top of her already declining mental health, her parents going through this messy breakup, it really, really took a toll on her, and she was just so unhappy. And at one point, this all just becomes far too much for Mary, and she just can't cope with it anymore. And at the age of 15, Mary decides that she's gonna run away. Mary had actually gotten herself a boyfriend in California, and when she makes a decision to run away, she decides that the best thing she can do is run away and be with him. And listen, they were living rough. And I mean rough, like they were on the streets for a while, they were then like breaking into cars, sleeping in locked cars, just this really unstable lifestyle, and this is just not what Mary needed. Mary needed stability. But she desperately wanted to be with her boyfriend. However, soon after they're living together, you know, on the streets in these cars, her boyfriend would be arrested for raping a young teenage girl. Mary, run. Run far. So here's Mary, 15 years old, and she's on her own again. You know, she is struggling by herself, and she does try to live by herself for a very short period of time. But she realises that she does need to be around her family. And so she decides that she's going to hitchhike to her grandfather's in California and hopefully spend some time with him, live there with him. She was just becoming really homesick, and the way she was living just now didn't feel like home. So Mary's made the decision that she is going to hitchhike back to be with at least one member of her family. So she's on the side of the road, she's trying to flag down cars, and this is where a van would pull over. Now, in this vehicle, there was an older looking man. He seemed really harmless, he seemed kind, he seemed concerned that this young girl was wandering on the road by herself, and he offers Mary a ride to where she's headed. And of course, Mary's thinking, you know, this man, he's old enough to be my dad, like, he's going to protect me, he'll look after me, make sure I'm safe and get me where I need to be. And very naively, Mary accepts a ride from this man. And this date of September the 29th, 1978, would be ingrained in Mary's memory forever for the most horrific reasons. So I just want to state that when I'm saying that Mary had naively accepted this ride from this man, I don't mean that in an insulting way toward Mary. Obviously she's a young girl at this point, and she does think that she can trust this man. And hitchhiking back then, a whole different ballgame. You know, everyone hitchhiked. I mean, I don't really think it was a thing in the UK, but I think in America, Australia, places like that, people would hitchhike all the time, and you just hope and pray and expect that the person who picks you up is a person of decency. But this day, September the 29th, Mary would be picked up by none other than Lawrence Singleton. A monster. And like, can we just talk about this guy for a second, right? You know me, I love tearing these creeps a new one, and he has got to be one of the least attractive men I have ever seen in my life. How this man ever got a wife is beyond me. If I woke up to his face in the morning, I would get a fright. I'm telling you, this man who thinks he's God's gift to women is really not all that. Actually, he ain't even that. Never mind all that. And this guy, Lawrence, who, by the way, I keep going to call Lawrence Whitaker. Remember him? POS. Got a video all about him. But this man, Lawrence Singleton, he was born on July the 28th of 1927. And he had grown up in Tampa, Florida, and he was a merchant mariner by trade. Now, Lawrence Singleton, he was known for his excessive alcohol abuse. And not only that, but he would become a very violent and abusive, angry drunk every single time he drank. But this didn't stop him, because this was in his nature. This man was an absolute monster. Now, as you can imagine, due to his alcoholism and his abusive and violent nature, both of the marriages that he had, again, don't know how he got a wife, but hey ho, maybe there was a magic mirror, or something. But it would be no surprise that both of his marriages had failed completely because he was an idiot, a creep, all things in between. Now, both of his ex-spouses, they would confirm that not only was he an abusive drunk, but he was just a physically and sexually abusive man, even without alcohol. He didn't need alcohol to be mean. It's just that people out with his family, that's when they would notice his mean streak, when he was drunk. But of course, behind closed doors, we all know that these monsters, they are who they are all the time. So luckily, these women, they are able to escape Lawrence Singleton, and even his own teenage daughter wanted absolutely nothing to do with this man. And I can't blame her, and I'm so bloody glad that she got away from him. Now, those who spent time around Lawrence Singleton, those who knew him, family, friends, whoever, they knew very quickly that Lawrence had a very deep, ingrained hatred of women. All women. He hated older women, he hated younger women, like teenagers, etc. He just despised them. And I think this is because the women that he's had in his life wouldn't accept his abusive behaviour. And then he thinks, oh, poor me, no one wants to put up with me, I hate all women, me. Because these freaks never take accountability for their own actions, and they never look in to realise they are the problem. And I'll be honest, there isn't a whole lot out there about his early life. So, you know, was there abuse in his childhood? Maybe, but we can only speculate, and I'm not going to sit here and accuse people of abuse when there's no evidence of it. So, and even if there was abuse, is that an excuse? No, it's not. But I think, even just with what we've went over so far, I think it gives a very clear picture and indication to the kind of man that we are dealing with here. And whilst you get this glimpse of this horrible, monstrous human being, I don't think anyone would be prepared for just how evil and sadistic this man could truly be. Also, is this little top button that keeps creeping up, is that like making me look like a priest, like I'm about to go and hold Sunday Mass? Not that there's anything wrong with that, love that in fact, but the priest just wasn't what I was going for brunch with the girls. Like it's kind of given the power of Christ compels you, and also I want to baptise you all in one, but so let's jump right back in to September the 29th of 1978. Mary Vincent, who is 15 years old, she has just accepted a ride from this man, and she believes so far that he's a kind man, that he is doing her a favour, and that he just wants to make sure she gets where she's going safely. So she's got in the van, they're driving along, they're chatting away, sort of like getting to know each other, both asking questions about each other. And then Mary, she sneezes. Like just a very quick, very brief, achoo! And Lawrence is like, oh no, are you sick? Here, let me take your temperature. And he starts like touching her neck to take her temperature. And listen, I'm no doctor, right? Not a degree in the room with me. But do you take someone's temperature by feeling their neck? Listen, maybe you do, but for me, I'd be like, sir, if we're checking temperatures here, just stick to the old forehead or get me a thermometer and I'll do that myself. Like, what? Why are we in my crevices? Kindly remove your hand from my throat before I kick you in your crown jewels, sir. Thank you. But at this point, Mary's just thinking to herself, you know, this is just a man who's really caring, like nurturing, just wants to make sure I'm okay. Like he's maybe got daughters of his own who he does this with. No, he doesn't, because his whole family disowned him. But Mary actually feels safe. She does see this as an element of care, and eventually she feels so relaxed that she's able to doze off and fall into a deep sleep whilst driving in this van. So Mary, she has a sleep for a little while, and then when she wakes up, she very quickly realises Lawrence Singleton, he is not taking her in the direction that she requested, and she starts freaking out. She's shouting, she's screaming, she is demanding that he turns the van around and takes her in the direction he promised he would. And Lawrence Singleton, he starts playing it off like, oh no, I never realised that I was going the completely opposite direction, even though we were going the right way when you fell asleep and I turned this whole crib around and went the opposite way. I didn't realise. But Mary is not buying it, not for a single second, and she looks around the van and she finds a very, very sharp stick that she then points at Lawrence Singleton, like on guard, and she's saying to him, you better turn this van around and take me where I need to go, or at least drop me off along the road in the right direction. And Lawrence at this point, he starts playing like delirious old man. Bearing in mind, he's only 50 years old at this point, and 50 is not old, okay? He can't play the old man act because he's not an old man. And he says to Mary, I am just an honest old man who has made a mistake. And after he says this to Mary to try and get the sympathy vote, Mary is still feeling on edge, and she is just thinking that something horrific could still happen. She felt like something could still happen to her. So Lawrence, after he says the whole old man fiasco, he then turns the van around, and at this point, Mary's awful feelings that she has in her gut, it should disappear. But in fact, it only got worse. This man has been putting on an act the whole time, and I do not feel safe. Sorry, I just had to put on some lip gloss because my lips are so dry, and I was like, why are they feeling even worse as I talk? And then I realised I didn't have my lip balm on, so I'm not moving from my little table, so I'm just going to put on the lip gloss. So they're driving along, and Mary is still so suspicious. She cannot rest at this point. And then Lawrence, I don't know if he was playing the old man act again, like, oh, my bladder's just not what it used to be, but he tells Mary that he has to pee and that they're going to have to stop along the roadside so he can pee. Mary is thinking at this point, is he really pulling over because he has to pee? Or is he pulling over so he can cause me harm? So Mary's looking around again, and she very quickly notices that her shoelace is undone. And in her mind, she's like, right, okay, when he gets out the van, I'll also get out the van. I'll tie my shoelace just in case I need to make a run for it. This just tells, she knows that something bad is coming. So as the vehicle pulls over, Lawrence gets out and Mary also jumps out. She gives her legs a quick stretch and then she bends over to tie her shoelace. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, Mary is knocked out, unconscious. She is out cold. And this once seemingly nice man, his evil side was coming to full fruition. Lawrence Singleton had taken a sledgehammer to the back of Mary's head to knock her out, to keep her subdued. So Mary, she eventually comes around and she is very aware of this horrifying situation that she's found herself in. She's shouting for help, she's trying to fight off Lawrence Singleton. But this horror was only going to get worse. Mary is forced into the back of his van and she is kicking, screaming, she is putting up the fight of her life. But this man, he takes off her clothes, he ties her up in the back of the van, and then he proceeds to brutally rape 15-year-old Mary Vincent. She is begging and pleading with this man, please just let me go. I won't tell anyone what you did if you just please let me go. Just let me be free. But he was not listening to her at this point, not until his sick desires were fulfilled. And once he has finished this horrifying rape, he then drove Mary to this huge canyon. He forced her to drink alcohol from a cup, just straight alcohol. He made her down this drink. And then he brutally raped her for a second time. Mary again is begging and pleading. She just wants to be free. She wants to be let go. She's not going to say anything. At this point, she just wants to go home. Now, this really seemed to anger Lawrence Singleton. He seemed to be so offended that she would want to leave him. And he says to her, you want to be free? I'll set you free. Lawrence Singleton, he then grabs a hatchet. He takes this hatchet and he hacks off both of Mary Vincent's arms just below her elbow. He has taken away her arms. She is bleeding profusely at this point, screaming in agony. She's in and out of consciousness, and he is loving every minute of it. And he states to her, now you're free. After he says this to Mary, he then grabs her and throws her down the 30-foot embankment, and then he goes down and stuffs her into a concrete pipe at the bottom of this embankment. After this, he climbs back up and he drives away. And he believes at this point, he's got away with murder. He believes at this point, Mary Vincent is dead, and she'll never be able to tell anyone what happened to her. However, the only problem for Lawrence Singleton at this point is that Mary Vincent is a fighter. One hell of a fighter. And this young girl, she wouldn't die. By some miracle, by great resilience and strength and bravery, Mary Vincent survives. So at this point, Mary Vincent, she is completely naked. She is drifting in and out of consciousness. She's lost both her arms. She is losing significant amounts of blood by the minute. And somehow in her mind, she finds this strength and bravery and resilience that you just never ever see. The only other time I've seen such a miracle or heard of such a miracle is Alice and Botha. Both of these women who statistically probably shouldn't have survived, they do. So while she's in this concrete pipe, every part of Mary's body wants to succumb to her injuries, wants to give up, wants to end this pain. But in Mary's mind, she is thinking, you know, if I don't get out of here, if no one finds me, if everyone believes that I just ran away and was never heard or seen from again, other young women could become a victim to this man. Other young women could already be a victim of this man. And I can't let that happen. And this next bit, I mean, honestly, the entirety of it is just a complete miracle, and the bravery is just unwavering. But Mary would take what was left of her arm, so, you know, like the stump of her arm, just below the elbow around here. And I do apologise, I don't know if stump would be the right word. It's what it says like online and news reports, interviews and stuff. If that's the wrong terminology, please let me know down below. But I don't mean any disrespect or anything like that. But she takes what is remaining of her arms and she digs them into the mud and the dirt, and she is packing her arms as much as possible to try and slow or stop the bleeding. How this 15-year-old thinks of this on the spot, I wouldn't even have a clue where to start. I would never think of that. The pain that would have caused. This young woman just, wow. I'm honestly just in awe of her. She's just incredible. So she's packed her arms with this dirt and she crawls her way out of this concrete pipe. She is then crawling her way up this 30-foot canyon, and somehow she makes it to the road. Now, once Mary is at the top of this canyon onto the road, she starts on this 3-mile journey back to Interstate 5. The whole time her arms are being held up like this, as high as they can go, because she's trying to stop blood loss. But ultimately she's trying to stop the muscles from falling out of her arms. And she's thinking to herself, you know, if I can get back to Interstate 5, it's likely that I'm going to run into a car. Someone is going to see me, surely. There was one car that would come up to Mary Vincent, who obviously recoiled in absolute terror when they seen what had happened to her, and they sped away. Listen, in those situations, you don't know how you're going to react. I would hope that you've called the police in that situation to try and make sure that she is safe, but I try not judge people's actions in that moment, because you never know yourself how you're going to react. And at this point, of course, Mary's starting to feel like maybe no one's going to stop. Maybe everyone will be too terrified to stop. But the second car that comes along has a couple in it. And this couple immediately rush to Mary's aid. They pull over, they get her in the vehicle, and they rush her to hospital. The minute that doctors see her, they are very, very surprised that she had made it this far. But because they had made it this far, they knew she would continue to make it further. They knew that she would survive. Now, Mary's injuries, they were life-threatening. They were probably in most circumstances unsurvivable, but she would undergo extensive surgery and she would make it. And this surgery must have been such an ordeal for Mary, because they even had to remove parts from her leg just to save her right arm. So it's like you've lost both your arms and now your leg's lost a bit of its mobility because you're trying to save your arm, and it's just awful. And this young girl, I mean, she is a fighter beyond words. If you look up fighter in the dictionary, I'm pretty sure that we'll find Mary Vincent and Alison Botha right underneath that description, because they are the definition of fighters. Mary was told that she had to get some rest, she had to get some sleep after these surgeries, but she refused. She said, no, I want to talk to the police and I want to give them every detail possible so that this man can be captured. And so she did. She sat down with the police. She gave a detailed description of this horrifying man. And it was so detailed and so accurate that the police were able to develop a very accurate composite sketch of this man, release it into the media, and immediately one of Lawrence Singleton's neighbours recognised him. And right away they call the police and they inform them of who this POS in the picture is. So the police, once they have his name, they're able to locate him and they immediately arrest him and charge him with kidnapping, rape and attempted murder. And at the point where Lawrence was arrested, Mary had now been fitted with prosthetic arms. Now, I'm sure, like me, many of you will find it very unsurprising that as soon as the media caught wind of this horrific tragedy that had taken place, they very quickly dubbed Lawrence Singleton the Mad Chopper. The Mad Chopper? Who is naming these people? Because, what? Now, just 6 months after her attack, her rape and her attempted murder, Mary Vincent, she would face down Lawrence Singleton at his own trial. She would look in his eye while she described to the court what this evil monstrosity of a human had done to her. And she would provide the damning testimony that would put this horrifying man away. And this really is where this story should end. It should end with Mary Vincent's survival and this man being put away or, executed. But it doesn't. There is still horror after Mary's survival. And honestly, you're gonna be very rageful here, because when I think about it, I am absolutely livid and fuming beyond words. Lawrence Singleton was only sentenced to 14 years. 14 years in prison for the rape, kidnap and attempted murder of this 15-year-old girl. This was apparently the maximum sentence that could be handed down at this time, and the presiding judge, he even said if he had the power, he would put this man away for the rest of his natural life. I just feel like in this circumstance, how the hell are we letting a torturous, murderous rapist even have the chance of freedom? And if you're not angered to this level already, you will be. Because Lawrence Singleton would only serve 8 years in prison before being released on good behaviour. And do you know what's even worse? Is at his trial, when he was being put away, he whispered to Mary Vincent and he said, "I'll finish the job if it takes the rest of my life." So this man is basically saying, when I get out of prison, I'll find you and I will murder you. This young woman has to live in, this young girl at this point has to live in the pure fear that this man will one day be released, and he's made a promise to her that he's going to come and murder her, finish the job. Are you freaking kidding me? Obviously there's a complete uproar, and Mary Vincent, she would win a $2.56 million civil judgment against Singleton. So he owed her this money. However, this POS, he was unemployed, he had $200 in savings, and he didn't have any property really that could be sold to give her this money. So although she won the civil judgment, did she really win? Because there was nothing in it for her than to say she won. As I said, he would only serve 8 years, which is ridiculous. And apparently this good behaviour was because he was a teaching assistant within the prison. Don't see how that works, but alright. Because if you rape, torture and slaughter a young girl, becoming a teaching assistant in prison, that's really great. Really rehabilitates you and gets you back out in the streets. Or at least it did for Lawrence Singleton. So he gets paroled, right? He's on a one year parole, by the way. Not much. And the authorities, they try and settle him in multiple different places, but people were not having it. The people of California, they were raging against this. There was protests that would have 500, 600, 700 people shouting, screaming, demanding that this monster does not get to live on their street. And authorities had to keep moving him. One time there was even a bomb detonated near his residence. And honestly, I wish this bomb had taken him out, because this evil POS should just have been wiped from the world. I truly believe if the police and the governor hadn't worked to put him in different accommodation, I honestly think someone in the public would have killed him. And I'd be here for it. Honestly, if someone killed that man, knight them, because they are phenomenal. And he's even being moved out of these properties wearing a bulletproof vest in case someone tries to take him out. It's just insane. Why are we protecting him? Put him out there naked and just see what people do. So no one wants Singleton, right? No place will take him, nowhere will accept him, and rightfully so. So the governor, he decides what to do is allow him to live on the San Quentin prison grounds in a trailer. So he's still kind of protected. And he was allowed to live here for the duration of his 1-year parole. I can't tell you how much I wish that bomb had just wiped him out when they had the chance, but we can only hope and pray, you know? Now, the public outrage and the outrage from Mary herself and her friends and her family, something good would come from that. This would lead to the passage of the Singleton Bill, which basically meant that anyone who used torture within their crimes, this would carry a sentence from 25 to life. So can we put Singleton Bill onto Singleton? You know, let him live through his own bill? Just an idea. And as you can imagine, Mary is living in complete fear, complete terror, just wondering if he's going to show up at her door to finish that job. And the thing is, Lawrence Singleton, he would follow through on his promise of murder, but Mary would not be the victim. So after Singleton's release, he would move back to Florida, and this man, he was not looking to live a life of peace and quiet. Let me tell you that much. So in 1990, he would be convicted of theft twice. On one occasion, he would serve a 60-day sentence for the theft of a $10 disposable camera. And then in the winter, he would receive a 2-year sentence for stealing a $3 hat. Really? $3? Can you just spend the $3? So then he gets put in front of the judge, obviously, and he just describes himself as a confused, muddle-headed old man. That old man ruse is still coming out. Give it up. You're not old when you're out there murdering people or attempting to murdering people, so don't try and claim you're old because you stole a $3 hat. But anyway, all of this would bring us to February the 19th of 1997, and this was the day that Lawrence Singleton would lure 31-year-old Roxanne Hayes into his home and viciously murder her. So Roxanne Hayes, like I said, she was a 31-year-old. She was a mother of 3, and she was just so dedicated to her family and dedicated to giving them the best life she possibly could. She did struggle to make ends meet, and because she was struggling so much to, put food on the table and provide for her family, she did turn to sex work to make some quick money, but it wasn't something that she loved doing. It wasn't something she seen herself doing long term. She was just hoping that some short-term sex work would give her enough money that she would be able to provide for her family until a better job came along. This woman, she was just so desperate to give her family a good life. It wasn't that she grew up dreaming of being a sex worker. I don't believe anyone does grow up dreaming of being a sex worker. She really never expected her life to go this way, but she would do anything she had to look after her family. The day that Roxanne's life would be stolen from her, she had an arrangement with Lawrence Singleton, and she was going to go over to his home, exchange sexual services for $20. I don't know if at this time that was kind of a standard fee. I don't know, but it just doesn't seem like a whole lot to be endangering your life meeting up with these strangers. So on this day when Roxanne Hayes is away to meet up with this absolute cretin of a man, there's a local painter in the area, and this painter, he would go on and give police reports and things, but his name has been kept anonymous, so Even though you can find his name out there somewhere, I am not going to do that because he didn't want his name shared, so I'm not going to share his name. But this local painter, he was in the area on this day because he was doing some touch-ups on some of the paintwork that he had previously done. And a day that should have been so normal and so mundane would turn into a horrific day that this man would remember for the rest of his life. And a day that would just leave psychological scarring beyond belief. So the moment this man arrives to finish off the paintwork, he would spot a horrifying scene. Like, in the corner of his eye, he's seen something and he's like, wait, did I actually just see that? And then he takes a proper look. So there in full view, this painter, he would see a man standing stark naked, like wiener to the wind. And this man, he had known him as Bill. But I'll tell you who it is. Lawrence Singleton. Now this Lawrence Singleton, right, he's just standing there full sausage and beans on display, not giving a crap about who might see him. And that in itself is a scary scene to behold. Nobody wants to see that freak naked, certainly not me. But then he very quickly notices the truly devastating scene that was a naked young woman laying on the sofa. She was completely motionless, she was drenched in her own blood, and it was very clear that she was dead. This man, he then witnesses Lawrence Singleton, or who he thinks is Bill, savagely stabbing this young woman over and over again like a frenzied attack, even though she's already dead. This is violence that this man didn't think existed apart from in movies. But here it was playing out in front of his very, very eyes. The painter said that every single stab delivered was so brutal and every wound looked like it was intended to kill. And as this man is witnessing this murder, he says that he could even hear the sound of Roxanne Hayes' bones crunching every time the knife was thrusted into her. He had described this sound as almost sounding like chicken bones being broken. And this is a sound that would haunt this man for the rest of his life. The man said that for the first few moments he was just paralysed with fear and terror and shock and trauma. However, once he was able to comprehend exactly what was going on, he immediately called for the police. He didn't make Bill, Lawrence, aware that he was standing outside witnessing this because he didn't want to scare him off. Now, because he acted so quickly and got the police, by the time the police arrived, Lawrence Singleton was still in the home. So law enforcement, they go in, they get Lawrence Singleton arrested, and very quickly they are able to tell that Roxanne Hayes is beyond saving. There is no bringing this woman back. There was such brutality in her wounds. Now, surprisingly, Lawrence Singleton, he was very forthcoming in his part that he played in this murder. Only he wasn't calling it a murder, he was calling it a confrontation and an act of self-defence. I know. They always do this, these sickos. It's always self-defence. There's always someone else to blame instead of their stupid ass selves. And I'm pretty sure it will come as a shock to absolutely no one that this man, his version of events were very different to what had actually happened. So Singleton, he is speaking to the police and he's telling them that this situation just escalated very quickly. It was like a total blur. So he stated that when he was paying Roxanne for her services, that Roxanne had tried to steal more money than what she had agreed. And Lawrence wasn't having this. He's not having a woman steal his money. So Singleton then states that the pair of them, they start wrestling over his wallet, over this cash, and one thing led to another. And apparently Roxanne Hayes had grabbed the knife and accidentally cut herself. But ends up with multiple stab wounds. And like, accidentally stabbing yourself is very different from accidentally cutting yourself, and you can't accidentally stab yourself like 20 times. So like, where are we going with this, Lawrence? Please tell me. Like, wee Larry Lawrence is out here just trying to do the absolute most so he doesn't have to go to prison. Now the painter, he comes forward and he says it was very clear that Roxanne Hayes was already completely incapacitated. She had no way of fighting back. Roxanne was practically dead at this point. There was no way that Roxanne would have been able to fight him in this moment, so there is no element here of self-defense whatsoever. There was also no evidence at the scene of, any wrestling taking place, and speaking to family and friends of Roxanne, they knew that Roxanne's never been aggressive. Ever. That's not in her nature, not in her character, absolutely not. And she was certainly not a thief. She would do anything to make ends meet, but she was not a thief. But thankfully, it was very clear to police right away that Roxanne had not tried to steal money and that this had not been an act of self-defense. It was an act of cruel, callous, cold murder. So of course, at this point, everyone knows that Lawrence Singleton is just talking out his ass and you can't believe a word that this man says. So he was arrested, he was charged with first-degree murder, and he would have to face yet another trial. Now of course, devastatingly, because she had been murdered, Roxanne was unable to be there at her own trial to have the last word in front of this horrible, horrific monster. She wasn't there to advocate for herself, but there was one woman that would be, and this woman was Mary Vincent. She attended the trial for Roxanne Hayes, and she would do everything in her power to make sure that Lawrence Singleton never walked the streets ever again. So Mary, she travelled to Florida for Roxanne so she could be her voice in this situation. She would testify against her attacker, that man who tried to take her life, who destroyed parts of her life. And she went into great detail just to prove to the jury how evil, sick and sadistic this scumbag truly is and what he is truly capable of. So Mary Vincent, she tells the court that in 1978 this man picked her up, he raped her multiple times, had kidnapped her, had attacked and tortured her, and had hacked off her arms and left her for dead. And she goes into great detail about this. She doesn't shy away from this at all. She knows how important it is that the judge and the jury, that they hear all of the horrific details because they need to know who this monster is and who they would potentially be letting back into the streets if they don't give him the proper punishment. She also states to the jury that the act that this man committed against Roxanne Hayes was not an act of self-defense. It was the act of pure evil. And with that, again, Mary, she is able to put this sick, psychotic, horrible monster, cretin, freak, creep of a man behind bars. And this time, he would not get freed from prison because this man, he would be convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to death. And whilst this is a win in this story that this day finally came, ultimately the whole picture of justice wouldn't be served because Lawrence Singleton, he would never be executed because in 2001 he died around the age of 74 from cancer. So that justice, although he was locked up, never fully was served because he died before his execution date. But you know what? I'm sure that this freak, the minute he passed away, he was dragged down to the depths of hell. And I hope and I pray that he is tortured every single day for the rest of eternity. And Mary Vincent, she would carry on talking about Roxanne. She made sure she was never forgotten, as did her family and friends, who just wanted to talk about how incredible of a woman she was. She left behind 3 children. 3 children that she was trying her best to support and look after. And I am sending so much love and prayer to those children, to Roxanne's family, to everyone around her, because the horrific way in which she was taken is soul destroying for the people who love her. Even for us listening and talking about this case, it is soul destroying. Because this man should never have been given another opportunity, not after what he did to Mary Vincent. That should have been the end of this man, and it wasn't. The system failed Roxanne Hayes terribly. And of course, everything that we've spoken about today has just been so horrific. I really want to end this video on a positive note. So I am going to talk about Mary Vincent and what she has done since her attack. So Mary Vincent, her life of course went on after the death of Lawrence Singleton. I think there was that relief from Mary that she knew this man could never come and find her or try and hurt her ever again. She has done so much work to work through her trauma, her physical trauma, her mental trauma, which would be so difficult and challenging to try and work through and overcome. Mary's always been someone who enjoys like tinkering around, just doing mundane little everyday things, but she really enjoyed pottering around. So she was actually able to develop her prosthetic arms even further in a way that would allow her to carry on this little like tinkering and pottering about that she would do. She would take things from broken down electronics and add them to her prosthetics to make them more advanced and to make them work in her favour so she can still do the things that she enjoys. Not only that, but Mary would go on to become a successful artist. She had attended the University of Nevada, Las Vegas as an adult. She went on to have 2 sons of her own. She also got married. That marriage to her son's father, it did result in divorce, but she is currently happily married to her husband, Tony. Not only did she become this successful artist, but she also became a victim advocate for giving victims a voice to the voiceless. And she would also support victims who have gone through horrific ordeals. She also travels all over delivering these motivational speeches on how she was able to overcome her attack and is just inspiring people all over the globe. Now, within her artwork, she uses chalk pastels to depict these powerful, upbeat women. They're almost like action figure women, and I think they just depict the strength that she has. She also does commission work, so she does things like family drawings, portraits, individual portraits. She is really just thriving in her career, and she truly is such a success, and she is so talented at what she does. And just one last thing that I thought was just incredible. Mary enjoys going bowling with her family and friends, but obviously with her prosthetics, it's not always the easiest thing to do. She designed her own prosthetic that she'll put on when she goes bowling to make sure she can play to her full potential. Like, how creative is this woman? She is absolutely incredible, and she's a hero. She truly, truly is a hero. This video today is dedicated to Roxanne Hayes and Mary Vincent and all the other victims of Lawrence Singleton's that remain unknown, because it is believed that Mary and Roxanne are not his only victims. And as always, I am sending love and prayer to them, their families, friends, everyone who loves them. But my loves, that is the end of another true crime and makeup episode, and I really, really hope and pray that I did this case justice for these young women. And I just hope that I was able to showcase their bravery and strength. If you did enjoy this video, please make sure you are subscribed with that notification bell on so you don't miss when I upload, which is twice a week, every single week going forward. Can't wait to be back twice a week yapping away to you all. It would mean the world to me if you can engage with this video in some way, leave a like and a comment. The comments especially really, really help out with the algorithm. If you can share it, that would be amazing if I'm not asking too much. I just want to thank every single one of you for your love and support. It does not go unnoticed, and I know how lucky I am to have a community of people like yourselves who are here with me every week, listening to me talk away and also just chatting away with me down in the comments. You mean so much to me, and I just hope you know how grateful I truly am. All the details you need regarding me, myself and I, they are all listed down below in the description. You'll also find a link to all of the products that I've used on my face today if there's anything you would like to pick up. Down below you will also find my social media handles, my Instagram, my TikTok. I'm posting more on TikTok, so if you want other content from me that's more lifestyle, give me a follow over there. But I hope you're all having a fabulous weekend so far. Please, please, please remember, be a good person. Do not be a bad person. Stay safe. Look after each other. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.